Hey, Dave with Nerdarchy here. For nerds, by nerds, with some of my esteemed colleagues here.
Got Ted.
I'm Ryan.
And today we want to talk to you about 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons Combat. So if you've been following along with our videos, you know we've been kind of breaking down the starter set section by section, and we happen to be at the combat section.
Huzzah!
So what do you guys think, man? You've been reading, looking at this stuff, and
Nope.
Oh,
No,
all right.
I'm just kidding.
Just make it up then.
All right.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I looked at that really is interesting, especially for all you power gamers out there, is they seem to have allowed more freedom in the rules, pretty much granting people what would be feats in earlier edition. The ability to just draw a weapon as part of your move and whatnot used to be quick draw, and now you can just do it. Whatever
Well, back in my day, we didn't worry about such things as feats and quick draw.
Well, I mean,
we just took our sword out and hit shit with it.
I wouldn't even say that it appeals to just power gamers. Like it appeals to anybody that wants a more narrative feel to their game, a more like story based. Whereas I can't go hit this guy because I can only attack or move. I can only move first and then attack. I can't do this extra bit of move. I can't go this extra 10 feet to hit this other guy over here.
So, in case people are wondering what we're rambling on about is, you have a base movement of X. We'll say 30 feet for most characters. And you have an action, which you can use that action to do a bunch of things with, and attack is one of them. Certain classes give you an extra action, or certain things give you a bonus action. So now, if I have 30 feet of movement, I can move 5 foot, stab you, move 10 foot, throw my light weapon in my offhand at somebody, and then move another 20 feet to
stab a third guy.
And stab a third guy.
As long as both those weapons are light, because you're using 2 weapon fighting rules.
That is correct.
That's right. You don't want to mess that
up.
So
that's actually even more powerful than 3rd edition Spring Attack, because you could attack and then move out, but you couldn't break your attack up. Now the freedom of not just movement, but the freedom of the rules allows you to do a more realistic situation, because you get X abilities in X amount of time frame, and you can break it up however you see fit.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even say realistic, but more like, like a movie with a tightly choreographed fight where you got, this guy's like fighting with 2 daggers. He's like stabbing this guy, flicks his wrist, puts another dagger in somebody's throat kind of thing. So it's definitely got that sort of like more action movie sort of feel going to it.
That being said, there's still attacks of opportunity. So if you run over and hit someone and do not kill them, but go to run over and hit someone else, because you just broke off from that person without performing an action called a disengage, that person can now take a swing at you.
Right. So do we want to talk about some of the various actions in a combat other than hitting, just straight up attack?
Yeah, Ryan, what can we do in combat now?
All right, so as you just mentioned, there is the disengage, which...
Well, let's start off with, it's broken up into 2 parts. You have your movement,
right,
and you have your action.
But that action can take place at any time during the course of that movement part of piece of your turn action. Yeah, basically, we were just saying you move, attack, move, that's fine. So one of the actions you can do, you can just attack. You can do a disengage, which is, say, I go to fight Ted, and
I prove too powerful for you. What do you wish to do?
I wish to withdraw, sir. So the disengage is essentially like the 3rd edition withdraw. If you still have your action left, say it's next turn, you're like, oh, I really don't want to tangle with this guy.
This is a bad idea.
This is a bad decision. You can disengage, which allows you to move your move away from that situation and not suffer the attack of opportunity they would ordinarily get had I not taken that action. So that's disengage. It's like trading your attack for a move, where you're just being defensive, retreating from that person, and then you still have your move again, so you could move doubly away from a dangerous situation.
So you get, using that 30 as an example, you'd get 60 out of it.
Right, because better part of valor, right? So there you are.
You can also dodge, which means you stay where stay where you're at, but you're actively trying to not get hit. So you wind up getting advantage on any dexterity rolls for that round, and anyone attacking you winds up getting the disadvantage.
Right, when you go to strike. Now, I actually kind of prefer the dodge action to the disengage, just because. So disengage is against that one foe, specifically against an attack of opportunity from that person. Now it's great if you're like fighting the big bad last person standing. It's the only person you're worried about attacking you, whatever. But what dodge does, say like I know getting away from this person is a good idea, but there's also other foes I got to worry about taking attacks from. Maybe I want to just deal with that attack of opportunity happening, but I take the dodge action. So that means he's got disadvantage. So he's got to take the worst of the 2 dice. But so does everybody else attacking me that turn, until I get to go again. So dodge seems a little more advantageous. I mean, it might be just a strategy thing, tactical thing.
You are the rogue. So.
Yeah, that's true.
So, all right, so that's dodge, disengage, and obviously we talked about attack.
Well, also, we could say that the sort of being able to manipulate, like, objects, draw a weapon, that kind of thing, you can just do that. Like, I can just kick open a door, or I can, I can pick up and take off a ring, or
pull a lever,
right, or grab something in my backpack. Any of that stuff. It's just included in the things you can ordinarily do in the course of the turn.
You can interact with one object as basically as a free action, as part of your action movement.
Yeah, as long as it's not something that requires either
a strenuous effort or whatever. Basically,
it can't require time, or it can't require some kind of
check.
Contested stuff.
If there's like a check, you're generally not going to be able to do that.
Okay, so that's kind of cool, and so there's not all these tactics that we used to be able to do before in previous editions. Like trip and disarm and bull rush.
Well, push is still in there. You can still attempt to shove somebody back or knock them over.
And take their lunch money?
And take their lunch money. But I was going to say, actually, they folded trip and bull rush into one action now. You can either push them back or push them down.
Right.
And it's called a shove.
Right. And the way that works is, I would, you engage them and you make a strength athletics check as opposed to just a strength check, which is kind of a neat advantage. And then the opponent gets to resist with a strength athletics or a dexterity acrobatics. So they get to choose which one they would prefer to use, and once they make their roll, whoever winds up coming on top wins. So.
Right. I mean, that's kind of similar with the grapple rules, too. But also, I mean, like, there was that little bit of flexibility and leeway that you had in even 3rd edition, where you get to choose how you want to defend against that thing, against the aggressor. But a much more streamlined mechanic to do so. Like, the grappling thing isn't umpteen checks to do it. It's just, my attack, which is a strength athletics ability, versus either their athletics or their acrobatics, or just straight up dex if that's the route they want to go. So I mean, it's kind of cool because it's just comparative dice rolling with not a crap ton of modifiers to deal with. So I mean, and I'm sure like certain monsters, like if they have multiple limbs or whatever, might inflict disadvantage or something. Like what are some of the nasty tentacly ones, like Otyugh?
Otyugh.
Like they're pretty strong and pretty grapply. So like,
or anything with multiple legs, 4 legs or more. Yeah. So that may be folded into it, and so. But the glimpse of what we got really is, it's interesting in that it's so streamlined. There's like there's not like all this flip.
You don't have to figure it out a lot.
No, you just get in there and play, and the things that always seemed kind of wonky in previous editions, well, actually 3.x and beyond, they kind of did away with it, because it never did really make sense that like you can attack and then move, or move then attack, but you can't do them in any other combination for some reason.
Unless you've invested like 3 feet into doing it. Like, so it's substantial.
To do what some kid in the Special Olympics could do, you can't do without a whole feat tray.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, really, like, with this demathing of the edition, when you look at like the scale and scope, the sort of the arc of people gaining, like attack bonuses and saving throw bonuses and this and that, like the monsters always escalated. Like it's always like the same. If they're keeping pace with you, you're really about the same level. There's nobody's really gaining ground between like the heroes and the foes. So like if it's kind of the same baseline, like, might as well just kind of keep that
It
the
was
same.
always a wash.
Yeah, it's usually a wash. May as well keep it the same, and just like, well, how else do you show that these heroes are getting better? Well, maybe the stat bonuses come in, or that they gain some abilities as they gain levels in their class, kind of thing.
Well, I saw that one of the things that people didn't like, or one of this individual didn't like, was the fact that, like, well, with the proficiencies. Now, it kind of bleeds over into other areas of the game, but they're like, well, the only difference is your ability and your level, because the proficiency modifier is the same. So how do you differentiate? Well, yeah, your level is a direct representative of your experience. So you don't actually.
Well, I mean, they always had like max ranks, which are pretty on scope, because when you look at they lowered the DCs across the board for all the skill checks. Like, it tops out at 30. Something that's nigh impossible is a DC 30. Whereas it used to be like 50, 80, so like really all those DCs
swim up a waterfall, DC 120 or
all those
like
things
that.
like kept pace really with.
But their argument was that because you didn't have a bunch of ranks to play with, there wasn't a differential that way within your max. It's like, what's the difference?
Well, now it's like with the lowering curve of everything. If you're innately gifted toward a certain type of activity, like say you're dexterous or you're intelligent or whatever, you have a decent chance of being able to pull off that thing to begin with, because of the lower amount. Like the DC 10 to 20 is like your range for most things. So I mean, you have a respectable chance to try and do most things that you're proficient in. And then, like, at a certain point, your character, we're a party of adventurers, and people do have to specialize amongst the group. So I mean, that's always been part of the game. Nobody's going to be able to do everything alone.
Yeah, if things are between 10 and 20, that first level rogue who specializes in picking locks, proficiency bonus doubles on 2 skills. It bumps it to a 4. He might have a 15 dex. That's another 6, another 2 for a total of 6. He's only got to roll a 14 to open up a really fabulous lock.
Right.
So, that's actually really neat to have that pared down. But getting back to the whole combat thing of our video.
Yeah, we're talking numbers and modifiers.
One of the other things that I found was really interesting was the holding action. If like a wizard says, you know what, I'm going to cast a spell and then hold it until condition X is met. He casts it on his round, here, and then as soon as that condition is met, he releases the spell as a bonus action whenever it happens to meet. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna cast this spell. I'm gonna wait for Bob to open the door, and I'm gonna cast Fireball into the room. So he waits until the next round. He opens up that door. Fireball goes off. He still gets to cast another spell that round, or some other action.
Possibly another area of effect for those that are still around.
Yeah. So I think that while there's less on some tactical ends of things, that kind of action manipulation offers another layer of tactics that wasn't there previously.
Yeah, for all the simplification, it doesn't feel like you've really lost the complexity of what you can do in the game.
No, we may have something to report when we actually play next week, because that's going to be our first foray into the 5e rule set.
No, our wizard over here won't be casting Fireball next week, but
not yet. We may have to wait a couple.
We'll get
levels.
to see how just a couple.
We'll get to see how Magic Missile works.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see how some of the mechanics play out. It'll be it'll be interesting to see how that goes. What else? Did we hit all the key actions?
Mounted combat.
Oh yeah, mounted combat's a little different too.
We got mounted combat and underwater combat. Both of them have been readdressed very nicely in this edition. Pretty much if your mount isn't an
intelligent beast like a dragon.
Yeah. I was going to say basically intelligent or sentient, but it just goes on your turn, and it really is just an extra set of legs for all intents and purposes that can possibly fall on you.
Right. So it's not a mount that you're getting an attack with. It's just something for you to get extra movement out of.
Not yet, too. And let's keep in mind that I think, we're not looking at the whole book either. So
These just might be the basic rules, or might stack into attacks or actions the classes get, that kind of thing.
Right. So there might be more to it. Or it may actually fall into the rules of the monster, or the animal, per se.
Right.
Maybe, a heavy warhorse in the monster manual says something completely different about, having bonus actions to use. We just don't know that yet. And then attacking underwater, they really streamline that. Basically
unless you're using a set of weapons, you're pretty much getting disadvantage.
And your range is shortened for your ranged weapons.
Right. There's an automatic miss beyond normal range.
Yeah. Basically, like, all of your sort of like thrusting weapons are fine underwater. Your short, well, not all. A select
short sword, dagger, trident.
I think spear gets that. Yeah. But I mean, it's the kind of thing like, if you've ever seen movies like with people like fighting underwater, it's the kind of things that they would be using basically. So it's got that sort of cinematic feel to it.
Yeah,
which is very cool. It keeps it super easy, not like all these modifiers you have to keep track of, because I don't know, like I didn't run a ton of underwater encounters because it just seemed like a pain in the ass. So, yeah.
You know what? If you're in the water, I found this rule pretty interesting.
What's this?
You have resistance to fire.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So okay, let's talk vulnerabilities and resistance.
Okay.
So
let's talk putting trolls in water attacking the party is really what it comes down to. There you go. That's what we got to talk about.
Yeah. So, if you have a resistance to something, you take half damage from it after all modifiers, both penalties, pluses and minuses. So, and then vulnerability is
you take double damage.
I think it's double damage. Yeah. So, and crits too, because we just said double damage. So it reminded me. In previous editions, guys, refresh my memory. Sneak attack. Did you double the sneak attack?
No, but now.
But now you do.
I mean, because they're happening less frequently too. So that's probably.
Well, yeah, once around.
Yeah. So that's. But how often are you going to get? Like, it's not even like a crit threat range. You need a nat 20 now to crit. Which I mean that was a carryover from 4th and really past editions prior to.
Well, again, we're only looking at the sample.
Right.
We don't know what things exist in the player's handbook and the DMG that magic items and whatnot that might be able to increase that range.
Right.
But they definitely know there's things that increase the damage. Barbarian. I believe barbarians have things that will increase the damage. I think the fighter does.
Well, I know there's one thing where a fighter gets at high levels gets the thing where you can like crit on a 19 or 20. So that tells you anywhere like they're going with the design aesthetic of critting, it's pretty darn rare.
Right.
Like other than magic items aside, which again, that's another thing that they're being precious about magic items. So it's not, if you're playing something that's true to sort of the 5e design concept, your setting shouldn't be filthy with magic items. Like,
well, that's going to be at the DM's discretion.
Absolutely.
What he's willing to to put out there. So.
Well, I mean, yeah, like Second Ed technically wasn't a Monty Hall-esque game, but you could absolutely make it that way. Yeah. Whereas Third is just like, you can't sneeze without having a ring of protection +1 sword or whatever.
Well, I mean, as we said in earlier videos, it was built into the mechanics that you needed a certain thing, from, by the time you got to 3rd, 4th level, you're expected to have a +1 item. By the time you get to like 7th, 8th, you should be really moving into the +2, and it just went up.
You got to a certain point.
It was an arms race. It was really an arms race.
It was. Yeah. At a certain point, it just felt like your equipment should have its own character sheet.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed just as important. Well, okay, so what have we left out? We haven't talked about when you adventure and you enter combat, dangerous situations, there's always a chance that you die.
That's true. Death happens.
So, I mean...
it looks like it's going to happen a little more often than not in 5e.
With all... first level characters, there's always that, that give and take of, how quickly are these characters going to die. In earlier editions, death was, at 0 and then it went to -10. Now it's your negative hit points. So for some characters, it's like, all right, you might have that D6 hit die and no con modifier. So death is at -6. That hurts.
Well, let's kind of examine this over the ages.
Okay, yeah. That's what I was going to say.
So in the beginning, there was -10.
Right.
Then from there, we evolved to It was your Constitution.
Was that's 3E's design?
I believe it was your
negative con. Yeah,
negative con. And then in 4E, it was your bloodied value.
Right, which gave you an awful lot of leeway.
Which was half your hit die.
And then you have like healing surges and this and that. So it's pretty. Your
GM has healing surge. I don't know. It's either half or a quarter of your hit points.
Right. It's been a while. So.
Yeah. We didn't do a ton of 4E.
But but now, and so from now it went to basically your hit points in the negative. So there's definitely a scaling effect. But here's what I'm thinking about. Right, you get into your first fight with an orc warrior. And you're the fighter, you're the meat, and you say you're kind of beefy. You have a 6.
So you're a beefy meat. All right,
beefy meat. Yeah. And hey, say you're a dwarven barbarian with 16 con. You've got 15 hit points. Well, an orc using a battle axe, two-handed, crits and drops double 10 on your ass. And if orcs are probably going to have either a +2 modifier or +3. Probably +2, I'm going to go with.
Yeah, +2 sounds about right.
So that's 22 points of damage you just took.
Out of your possible 30, essentially.
Yeah, so you are dead. You're on your way out.
That's saying he maxed on all dice.
Oh, that's what he's saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But, any other character other than that barbarian with a 16 con, which
would be toast.
Yeah. It wouldn't be too easy. Everyone else is toast.
Yeah.
I think even the fighter with 10 would have 13 hit points, so 26. He would be hanging in there barely.
So that's games are thrown in this shit. Like basically, you were a hero, and then you had a bad break.
Class.
You had a bad break. Is really what it comes down to.
Any non-warrior class is done. Yeah. A warrior class with a maxed out con hangs in barely.
But you have that first level, fighter, if he only has a +1 con modifier, done, out of the picture.
So, but let's go back to the guys that are still hanging in there. What happens next? An old friend of ours would have loved this. Death saves, death rolls. Yeah. So basically, the deal is, 3 of a kind wins.
Right.
So once you drop, you make a save versus DC 10 every round. Until you fail 3 times or you succeed 3 times. So, 3 of a kind wins or loses in this case. 3 death saves and you're done.
Right.
If someone hits you while you're down, death save.
You take the damage. So that's gonna accrue towards your negative hit points. But it's another save to roll. So it might can that spur you closer to getting back up somehow?
I don't.
Because if it's three wins,
I want to double check that.
If I've passed 2, you come up and smack me, and I'm forced to make another roll.
Oh yeah, that would be you would be stable.
So he smacks me and somehow stabilizes me.
Yeah, but that being said,
that's kind of a bizarre set of circumstances. But that's.
It is, but then the damage may be enough to kill you anyway. Well, no. When you take damage at 0, it just counts as a failure. You suffer a death saving. That's why I wanted to double check. If the damage is from a crit, it's 2 failures.
So the bizarre circumstances of a stabilizing smack.
No. So apparently some Grumsh worship where like Grumsh is just like pounding on you. But no, and also too. If you critical fumble, i.e. rolling a 1, that's 2 failed saves.
2 fails.
2 failed saves.
But on the advantage, a 20...
A 20 is weighted in your favor. You instantly stabilize and you get 1 hit point.
Yeah.
So you're not, so it's nice that it's at least skewed a little bit toward the hero side.
You know what else, too, I just remembered, is getting up in combat. 15 foot of movement that gets you on your feet.
Right. Well, is it half your move or is it literally 15?
Oh, it's half your move. Half your move.
Because the halflings have although they changed the disparity between moves, it's only different of 5 feet as opposed to 10. So I was just curious, but okay, yeah, burns. I think it burns about half your move.
So. Yeah, and so half your move you can stand up as part of your move action.
That's pretty cool.
But it's better from the previous editions in the sense because before it took your whole move action to stand.
You gotta kip up.
Yeah, or you made the
The
skill check
acrobatics. Yeah, I think there's
or whatever. But now, half your move, you stand up, you still have your other half, and you have your action.
Yeah, it's not bad.
So, yeah, all in all, it just feels a lot more cinematic in everything you do. I mean, let's face it, you get knocked over, you pop up, you punch somebody in the throat, and then you run away.
Now, I wonder what do you think a good baseline for like an acrobatics checks to just keep up, maybe burn less move by doing it. I mean, because you want to.
That's something to consider when the PHB comes out and.
I want a ruling on this now.
No.
Drop a die.
Yeah, drop a die.
I'll tell you if you found or not.
Yeah.
You found.
The other thing.
I rolled an 18.
Probably a 15, man.
Yeah.
I'd say like a 15.
Yeah. The other thing that's that's in there is trying to knock somebody out. Going through the editions. You actually had characters who had a percentile chance to actually just flat out knock them unconscious. Now if you deliver a strike to somebody and it brings them to 0 hit points, you can choose to say, you know what, I'm knocking them out.
I mean, I just slit their throat, but they're resting. I knocked them out. I totally.
But so they drop. They're unconscious and stable, as opposed to being on the ground, possibly dying. So it's generic, that rule a lot. For maybe your good clerics and paladins who are tired of just killing everything in their wake because.
Or you need to take a prisoner.
Or there's that as well.
Sometimes you need to interrogate a goblin.
There's no more -4 to use subdual damage. Just no, I'm choosing to make it this way.
Which, I mean, if you're hitting them with the sword, really, how hard is it to turn the blade? Or flip around your mace and hit them with the pommel instead of the really hard and rigid part.
Coming from someone who's actually trained in combat, you could actually turn your sword around too.
Well, yeah, but the point is, it doesn't require a whole bunch of math to do.
Right.
And that's kind of a gist of everything with this edition. Just say what you're going to do, drop some funny shaped dice, and have fun with your friends.
Yeah.
I think pretty much sums it up.
I think so too.
Yep, so we've combated the issue of combat.
We have.
There we are. So we get XP now. I think that's...
Do we level up? In this edition, probably do, because it doesn't take much XP.
Actually, we did level up. Why did we level up? Because our Facebook group, the Nerdarchy Facebook
fan page.
We hit 1,000.
We hit 1,000. Thank you very much, all those people that joined us over there. And if you'd like to join us, you can do so.
If you're going to tell them about that, then we also gained another level somewhere else.
We leveled up where?
On YouTube, we're over 250 subscribers. We're like 263 now or something.
Thank you guys for that.
Hey, thank you for joining us there. Thank you.
So with that, until next time, my friends, stay nerdy.